Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. So in this one we're looking at how my team got on in game week 11. We've also got another half of the video, of course, showcasing how I'm shaping up for game week 12 with transfer plans, captaincy decisions, benching options and so on, and just a little bit of advice really on how to navigate this blank game week 12 coming up very quickly. Of course, if you're new to the channel and you do like what you see, then please consider hitting that subscribe button for me, and of course if you enjoy the content as well, then smash that like button below. I have got a live deadline stream scheduled for tomorrow evening, so feel free to also join me on that one. I haven't got enough time to produce any other videos other than this one this week. It's a very fast turnaround, and then again going into game week 13 we've of course got a weekend deadline ahead of us. So 6 PM deadline tomorrow, guys. Make sure you tune in on that live stream from 5 PM onwards tomorrow, and yeah, I'll answer any questions you've got. So let's jump into the main video here with yes, my team for game week 11. So all out, we got 53 points. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with that overall. After Haaland blanking in terms of a captaincy, realistically, we can't ask for much more there. There's maybe a couple of decisions that didn't fully go our way, but I'm still happy with the two transfers that I made. It was unfortunate with Reece James obviously being injured. He definitely was a long-term hold for me if the news didn't come out that we think he's possibly even going to be missing the World Cup. So I was happy to kind of just use that second free transfer really to attack this game week and the next. It did turn out though that the defender I brought in was also playing one of my strikers, and yeah, it just turned out that the striker I had in the team luckily did put 2 goals against him. So that's where we're at in terms of overall points. It has meant a green arrow for me. I was sitting just outside of the top 1.1 million, so it's about a 200k increase to 890,000. I didn't take any hits again. I've only had one -4 this season, which I'm very happy with after 11 game weeks. With 4.2 million in the bank to play around with for this game week 12, with a squad value of 97.8 million now. So that's the team summary overall. But let's start breaking it down from nets up to our forwards then. And what a hero to start with this man, Guaita. You know, to be honest, it was a very close call for me between him and Raya coming into my team potentially for that wild card in game week 9. I think really Palace, in terms of their defenders, overall they're not highly owned, so he's still actually quite a strong, almost differential really. And it was a bit of a story of the goalkeepers in terms of heroes, right? This week we had Sarr saving a penalty, obviously Guaita, we had Alisson getting an assist, Raya of course as well in double digits. It's been a great week for the goalkeepers, to be honest. But this man, 11 points, so it was 6 saves, clean sheet, plus the free bonus as well to boot. Absolutely phenomenal performance from him. Although I will caveat that with the fact that I don't realistically think Leicester gave him too many problems. A lot of the shots he actually saved weren't necessarily what you'd consider on paper very difficult. I mean, you know, sorry for anybody watching that's a goalie. Maybe he made it look easy and they were actually a little bit more difficult to stop. So, you know, credit where credit's due though. Giving me a double-digit haul only after the second week of owning him. Very happy indeed with that. Then moving into the defenders, we've got Trippier next up. To be honest, I did anticipate that we would actually score against Newcastle, so I didn't think the clean sheet was going to be coming from him. The likelihood of all my defenders really was quite low in terms of clean sheet probability. But as mentioned in the team selection video last week, when I placed him in there, I just think ultimately he's on so many set pieces, and the threat that he provides, as well as of course Newcastle being what I consider now quite a formidable team under Eddie Howe. So, you know, defensively he gives us those potential clean sheet points, but also offers a great attacking threat as well. And realistically, even though he hasn't given me the attacking return here, he has still registered those 6 points once again. He's just a Mr. Consistent. He was up on the bonus I think at one point, but didn't quite get any in the end. But yeah, very happy with his performance. Moving into Webster, so as already mentioned, he was one of the transfers I did make ahead of this game week, transferring Reece James out for him. Really, I mean, I didn't anticipate a clean sheet. I thought that maybe it was going to be a little bit difficult, and if someone was going to register a goal for Brentford, especially after that you know, well, not embarrassing defeat, but a difficult defeat for them at Newcastle being 5-1, I think really Ivan Toney was going to be the man that stepped up, right? And he did. not only once but twice, wiping out the clean sheet for Webster. But I'm still very happy that I went with Webster over Dunk. I mean, I did tune into the game. I was watching really kind of more the back end of the second half, and from an eye test perspective, I know that they were obviously on the losing end, but Webster was, honestly, he was so far forward for a defender or ultimately a centre-back. He was playing almost at times, almost 1-2s with Danny Welbeck, to be honest, in and around the box. So I think actually he might give us some kind of attacking output as well over the next few weeks. And ahead of a Forest fixture next week, I am still happy that I made this transfer, even though immediately I've only registered the 1 point so far. Then finally, on the back line, we have João Cancelo, only scoring 2 points after Mo Salah's return to form and scoring against the champions. It's a shame, really. He was actually the person marking Mo Salah that inevitably resulted in the goal. I think realistically, he was maybe pinned back a little bit more than we would like to have seen across the game. But yeah, I still think, again, you're playing essentially Liverpool at Anfield. You're going to anticipate them coming flying out of the blocks. A lot of energy in that game, and that's what it provided, really. So no attacking returns for him this time, and the clean sheet wipeout. But of course, yeah, the City's fixtures after game week 13 for me is an absolute hold, even through the blank in game week 12. So that summarises the back line. We've got the midfield coming up next then. So Sterling, I think I mentioned this already, he's probably my regret in the wild card. Actually watching the highlights though, he did hit the bar. He was very close with a header as well, I think. It just went wide of the post. I just think on a different day he scores a brace. So I'm still happy again with the fact that the decision making on his XG, on his stats, maybe the eye test was maybe not as used as predominantly for him as a pick, but definitely the stats, I think it was a good pick. In terms of the output though, it's just Mason Mount seems to be the one that's in form. Sterling did have a brace, I think a few game weeks before I brought him in 9, but he just hasn't produced anything. And also now under Graham Potter, we're also seeing a lot of rotation, and with high volumes of games, let's say, across October, and of course it may continue for Chelsea as well if they progress through the Champions League with midweek fixtures, cup fixtures and so on. I think maybe he's a little bit at risk in terms of that rotation. So not the best pick for me in terms of wild card, so he's definitely on the watch list out for me this week. And then moving into Maddison, another disappointment. I mean, it's so unlucky really for wildcarders or anybody that transferred him in. He was on 2 yellow cards on game week 9. So he had to get essentially 3 yellow cards. I was always looking at potentially game week 13 or 14 to ship him out anyway. But ultimately, all he had to do was just not get booked across 3 fixtures. What does he go and do? Gets booked for 3 fixtures. And the 5th yellow card, of course, was for a dive in the 94th minute. So can't really make it up, to be honest. It's really, really unlucky. I apologise to those on that joined me for the live stream and said, do I trust him? And I did say yes. I think that, from a discipline perspective, players aren't, they're not unaware. I think their managers and essentially themselves probably know that they're one more booking away from a suspension. As we can see with Jesus, right? Jesus, I think, has played now 2 or 3 games since picking up his 4th yellow card and hasn't picked up another one since. So I do think that players understand the behavioural issues and ultimately they know that 5th yellow card means a suspension. It's just an unfortunate scenario for him. They were chasing the game and just like I say, overall unlucky. And to not register an attacking return against... Really, I would say Palace did pretty well. Of course, I had Guaita in goal. So again, it was a situation where if I wanted an attacking return from someone, it would have hopefully been Maddison involved. But it just wasn't to be. And instead, Guaita comes away with the double-digit haul instead. And then in the same game, we also had Wilfried Zaha playing. Very, very quiet. I think, again, from a wildcard perspective, the statistics backed him up in terms of what he'd done previously, and the fixtures looked phenomenal, but he just hasn't performed anything, really, in terms of those double digits that we know he's capable of. He actually looked a little bit off it again for that game in Leicester. He seemed to go missing a little bit. I still think that as the talisman of Palace, though, and on penalties, he's still a value pick, but he's certainly on the radar for me to potentially move out should that Foden or Saka or someone like that post game week 12 come into the thinking from game week 13 onwards. And then last but not least in the midfield, we do have Trossard again playing I had a lot of players sort of playing against each other in some ways, but didn't have a defender for Brentford. But of course, yeah, I did expect a little bit more from him, to be honest. He did go a little bit missing, I think. I watched some of the game, predominantly more of the second half. Didn't really see him feature much. I think he was subbed pre-80 minutes as well, so got past the 70th minute mark, but or 60th minute, should I say, but still wasn't really performing as well as what we've seen from him before. I do like the fact that I've got him ahead of Forest, though, as some people now are looking at Maddison to Trossard. So I don't think he's going to be much of a differential. I think a lot of managers are looking at that kind of, that 1-3 transfer, or even for a -4 to bring him in ahead of that Forest fixture. But certainly from game week 13 onwards, I think that he's probably going to become Martinelli for me if I want someone around the same type of value. So pretty much I think Forest fixture next, fantastic. Not very good against Brentford in terms of his output, but still happy to own him nonetheless. And then finally going into the strikers next. So Mitrovic, I feel kind of a little bit fortunate in some ways, but of course I did have Andreas on the bench there. I haven't actually updated the bench information, but I did have Andreas, so you can see a double up on Mitrovic on the graphic, so apologies for that. Mitrovic is actually Andreas, who scored 5 points, not 0, and Sterling, of course, didn't score 0, he scored 3. The second bench option was actually James Justin, who did score 6 points. Nico Williams also as well was featured, but only scored 2 points. So unfortunately didn't update that in time for you, so apologies for that. But yeah, as I mentioned, played Mitrovic ahead of Andreas on the bench first, and after Andreas got the initial assist for the first goal, I thought, okay, this is potentially going to be a Mitrovic blank, even though he was playing. He looked really uneasy on that foot injury, to be honest. I think I heard reports as well that he had taken quite a significant amount of painkillers just to play the game, which is a little bit worrying. But ultimately, he still scored the penalty for us, which is great. He got the attacking return. I would have been disappointed if I chose to play him ahead of Andreas, and if he wouldn't have registered an attacking return, I could have obviously had the 5 points from Andreas. But like I say, with that goal, with a few bonus points to boot as well, scoring me a handsome 7 points there. So happy that he's returned and looking good against a Villa that essentially is a Thursday fixture. So the turnaround, I think, is long enough to not really worry about his minutes, which is good. Then, of course, this man at the moment, Erling Haaland, first blank for a while, really. I mean, in terms of captaincy, I think some managers have been unlucky that they've tried to go against him, and the week that most people have, again, maybe tried not to take the risk, gone with him, he only scores 2 points. I think, to be honest with you, Liverpool dealt with him very well. I think defensively they actually performed a lot better than I thought they would. I mean, Anfield is a fortress anyway in terms of the support and essentially the atmosphere it creates, right? So I don't think we can shy away from the fact that definitely played that kind of 12-man influence on the Liverpool squad. They felt they looked a lot more at it, a lot more hungry, to be honest, to kind of prove they can still be in and amongst those champions of Manchester City. And I just think it's showcased here. I do feel it's a little bit unfortunate that, of course, we didn't get a return from him. I don't think Liverpool defensively showed any type of form really ahead of this fixture. So I still think the logic and the decision making was there, to be honest. So still happy that I did it. Again, we can't be disappointed though that he's blanked, right? In all of these weeks that I've owned him and captained him, I've had so many returns for him where I expected little. For him to return little when I expected more, I just take it on the chin, to be honest. I don't think it would have changed much in terms of the rank anyway. And then finally, last but not least, this man, Ivan Toney, with an absolutely phenomenal penalty record. I did tweet this out as well at the time of him scoring it. I just think it's something to behold. I did sort of tweet out that Southgate, are you watching? Of course, he was selected for the Nations League in the international break, but never featured for him. Potentially gets the nod for the World Cup, and I kind of wish him every success, really, to be honest. I think he's fit into the Premier League very well. Of course, he assisted in getting Brentford promoted, and I think they look like a formidable team and they belong in the Premier League, which is great for them. I don't think they've got this small club mentality. I think they go at every game and expect that they can get something from it, which is phenomenal to see from a neutral perspective. And I just think that, again, this goes back to that talisman ideology, I suppose, of FPL, where you have the likes of Zaha, Maddison, Toney, Haaland. These players in our teams, they're there for those reasons, that they get to take the penalties, they're in and amongst the goals more often than not. And I just think, yeah, he's a fantastic hold for me. I think probably now all the way until game week 16, even with that Chelsea fixture coming up next. So let's have a look at the team in terms of how they're shaping up for game week 12. So like I say, I feel generally speaking that I'm in a pretty comfortable position here. I mean, a lot of managers I know are probably going to be struggling to field at least 11 players, let alone, essentially a strong 11, shall I say. So I do have to, at the moment now, with Maddison's Maddison's suspension, should I say, rather than injury, currently red flagged because of that suspension. He doesn't come into the team and Nico Williams steps in. Now, there is a risk that he does get rotated. Of course, he did lose his place most recently to Aurier. However, he wasn't in the squad in the most recent fixture. So I do anticipate with such a quick turnaround, whatever those issues were or whatever the problem with him was, we can suspect that Nico will probably get the start. Now, am I anticipating much from him? Not really, to be honest. I have Trossard from an attacking point of view playing against him, so not ideal, but I don't really anticipate much for him. To be honest, my plans at the moment are pretty much quite straightforward in that I'm potentially going to go Sterling to Salah. I think really I haven't put captaincy and vice captaincy here on the graphic because I was a little bit undecided essentially going into creating it, and I still kind of am, but I think realistically going for a premium pick, he's the only one that stands out in terms of fixtures. Of course, he scored a hat-trick against Rangers, or although the opposition taken into consideration, they're maybe not the most formidable for him, especially. But scoring a hat-trick so quickly, then having, only coming away actually from that City fixture with one goal where he should have scored more. I think ahead of West Ham, Forest, I think there's some other great fixtures in there as well between 12 and 16. He makes the most sense. And as mentioned already with Sterling, he's a little bit of a difficult one for me in terms of rotational risk. Salah's nailed, he's on penalties, it makes sense. He's also a captaincy choice. So I think he's more than likely going to be my transfer tomorrow, but I won't confirm that unless I think that there's going to be a price rise or another price fall for Sterling. I would make sure I'll catch that, but either way, as mentioned, you'll get all the details on my live stream or maybe before, depending on when I make that transfer. So that's what I feel like I'm going to do. And to be honest with you, in terms of the rest of the squad, other than the Ivan Toney fixture against Chelsea, I feel like we've got some pretty good fixtures to attack here. Mitrovic and Andreas coming in against Villa at home. Obviously, they're really struggling at the moment. They did look quite good actually against Chelsea, to give them some credit. However, I think that Fulham at home, again, Craven Cottage has been pretty good in terms of the support and what they've been able to produce as a team. And I think with Andreas, with his attacking returns in recent weeks, I'm quite happy to play him ahead of maybe trying to transfer him to an upgrade and essentially taking a hit. I just think it makes sense to play him. Zaha against Wolves at home. There's so many good fixtures here. And even James Justin against Leeds, I feel like, James Justin, I played him in the week that over these past 3 weeks since wildcarding him in, I've played him 1 out of those 3 weeks, and that was the week against Bournemouth where he didn't keep a clean sheet. The other 2, he has managed to register at least 6 points. So I'm hoping for the same here again. I do believe Leeds probably pose a little bit more threat though, so a little bit apprehensive about what he can do from a clean sheet perspective. Although Leeds are an open team essentially, that they like playing gun-ho style football for the most part. Maybe James Justin can get some kind of attacking return, as he has done already this season for a couple of assists. And of course, Webster and Trippier also with favourable fixtures, with Guaita in goal against Wolves as well. So overall, I think, we haven't gone into each player to break down, as I'm conscious of making this video too long, of course. But generally speaking, I think I'm in a pretty good position for game week 12. I really did want to come into game week 13 with no transfers used. And to be honest, I'm not sure I would have got away with that, even with the situation with Maddison. I think potentially I would have played him, let's say, ahead of Nico Williams. But ultimately, I think with Salah and a captaincy option kind of being a little bit up in the air with of course, Man City and Arsenal both blanking, in terms of your next best options, I really think that Mo Salah is going to be that next best person. So, to be honest, it's just an obvious move, or a clear move, I think, from Sterling to him for the captaincy decision. So yeah, it does mean that game week 13, more than likely, if I want to attack it with City and Arsenal assets, to maybe keep up with some of those that have held their wild card for that reason, essentially, to bring those City and Arsenal assets back into their squads. I think realistically, I need to attack it, but we'll review that further down the line. It is, of course, again, a fast turnaround till the weekend, but we just don't know what's going to happen. It's fast and furious in this month of October. and we've just got to react, right? And Maddison is one of those situations. We've just had to react. So hopefully you got on as well as I did in game week 11. Got yourself a green arrow to boot as well. I hope, of course, as always, you find the content useful. As I say, it's unfortunate with the quick turnaround. As I work as well full time, it's been a little bit difficult to be able to produce any more content in between these game weeks. But rest assured, I'll be there on the live stream tomorrow evening to be able to answer any of your questions, bench headaches, captaincy decisions, you name it. Come and join me from 5 p.m. onwards tomorrow. I'll be more than happy to have you along there. And of course, as well, if you're new to the channel, as mentioned at the beginning, and you do want to subscribe, I would very, very much appreciate that. We've already broken that 400 mark and well on our way to that 500 subs, where I do get a community page on this channel. So very, very looking forward to that next milestone. So yeah, keep the support coming, guys. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely love creating content for you guys, and long may it continue through this season. So once again, I hope you had a fantastic game week this week. Let me know in the comments how you got on with any dilemmas you've got as well. Of course, I do try to respond to all of them. And yeah, hopefully see you guys in another video soon. Take care.